What's up guys, it's Project bringing you my insane turkey leg drumstick bonk build that is crushing DLC bosses. If you want easy mode, again, this is the build. I'm gonna say this is as strong or even stronger than my vampire build I made recently, but also weaker in some cases that I'll talk about later. But hands down, this is the best bonk build in the game for the DLC, at least that you can make early, like at the very start of the DLC. And get the weapon and start bonking, where every 2 strong attacks equals stagger and blood loss for over 10,000 damage a set. And I will post spoilers, they're going to be at the end of the video, but you are going to see the hippo now and some other gameplay while we talk. Let's start off with stats. It's a 150 build. Most of the footage is with a plus 11 Erdtree blessing or lower, and then 12 for the frenzy boss at the end. We get 59 vigor to obviously live, 15 mind to cast our buffs, and 32 endurance to wear their armor and stuff, 23 strength, 13 dex, 25 faith, and finally 55 arcane, as we are a bleed build. Now I only get 23 strength because I wanted to boost arcane, so you will have to two-hand this weapon in order to wield it. So just remember that you have to two-hand it, then you can use your Ash of War and start bonking. But if you wanted to, you can use the Hornset Helm, which gives you plus 5 strength, which gets you to that 28 that you can farm from the Hornset enemies. But the Bellarat Tower Legacy Dungeon, go into the small private altar grace, and just outside of some stairs will be the Hornset that you can farm and get that helmet, or take away 5 points from arcane, your choice. And for the class, this is done on Prophet. However, on screen you should see alternatives as well, and it will have a level 200 spec at the end of the build talk. But let's get into the build. We are using the Bloodfiend's Blood Arm, or I guess Bloodfiend's Arm, with the Bleed Infusion. This thing is absolutely bonkers, where the charged R2 does insane stance damage, and it also has a blood effect just like that, which does a little AoE. It doesn't actually bleed itself, but it does do an AoE, which apparently is pretty good in PvP. But you can farm this weapon at Prospect Town. At here, you will have to go from the starting grace up to the 3-path cross, go into the big tunnel, get this grace at the main gate cross, why not? And then you're gonna go this path here, the Cliff Road Terminus, and that will take you to Prospect Town, where you can farm a bunch of those big ugly guys with a hammer that you need. It is a drop, you will have to farm it, but it is definitely worth it. But this thing does insane stance damage with just R2, boom. And just 2 of these will stagger pretty much every boss in the game, in the DLC. Mesmer, everyone else. So pretty crazy. Now by default, it comes with Endure, but we are actually going to use the new Ash of War called Shriek of Sorrow. What this Ash of War does is basically a roar that also stacks with Flame Grant Me Strength and Golden Vow, which was really nice. And apparently, this thing grants you Occult Affinity and the following skill. So the lower our HP, the higher our attack can be. So this Ash of War combined with Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength, along with our talisman setups, means when I'm at a lower life, I'm gonna have over 2,700 AR with just a level 12 Erdtree blessing. Insane skill. But apparently, because I tested this against Royal Knight's Resolve, I tested against Cragblade, and this thing, I think it adds actual occult scaling bleed to the weapon, because without this, I wasn't able to proc bleed as much. So I use Cragblade and I use Royal Knight's Resolve. Both are really good still. I would say Royal Knight's is better. However, you do have to waste time buffing every attack. So even if you do 7,000 damage on an attack, you have to waste that split second to buff, which, you know, with these bosses is kind of dangerous.
Project forgot to mention that the Ash of War also deals stance damage on Roar, so you can follow up your attack and break the enemy's stance. Sick! Get out of my swamp!
What are you doing in my swamp? Hey!
So yeah, you want Shriek of Sorrow and you want the Blood Affinity. And as you can see here, with 55 Arcane, we get 212 bleed loss buildup. So yeah, every 2 hits, you will trigger bleed, which does have downsides against human enemies, because if you do an R2 into an R2 into stagger, the bleed will knock a human enemy out of stagger, like against Melania. So in those cases, the vampire build is usually better because you obviously lose your stagger and This weapon is slow, so against faster enemies, you will have a problem with actually getting off those R2s, so keep that in mind. It does have a weakness against fast enemies, but as you see in the footage, for the things like Mesmer and stuff, it does well. But this Ash of War is found in this location here. Now this is a one weapon build, however you can fit more, but you will have to use a arsenal jar to actually fit it, because you won't have enough equip load, at least with 32 endurance. You may be backhand blades, for example. You will need arsenal jar instead. But let's just go over armor. White mask for the bleed build boost whenever you trigger bleed. Grave Bird's Black Quill armor, pretty much the same setup as my vampire build. This boosts jump attacks. You don't have to use this. You can use Raptor's Feathers if you haven't gotten this yet at the very start of the DLC. Yeah, this is found in this location here, surrounded by a bunch of freaking birds. And then we have Crucible Gauntlets and Fire Prelate Greaves, which gives you 55 poise. For the talismans, Lord of Blood's Exaltation for 20% damage boost whenever you trigger bleed, which you will. Then the two-handed sword talisman, a new talisman from the DLC. This has gotten a little bit later, so this isn't really part of the early setup, but you will find it in this location here by going through this path. Pretty much the same thing as my vampire build. You will have to two-hand it. It does not boost skill damage, it only boosts normal attacks, but luckily we are a normal attack build, so best in slot. Then, Axe Talisman. Enhances charge attacks. Pretty simple. Charge your attack, you kill. And then for the fourth talisman, again, you can use Great Char's Arsenal if you want to fit an extra weapon, maybe even Erdtree's Favor, or maybe a defensive one. But otherwise, I would go Dagger Talisman, because you're going to stance break a lot, and that's going to boost your critical hits. Or for your normal playthrough of a level, you want the Crusade Insignia, which boosts your damage by 10% whenever you kill, and the buff, I believe, lasts for 30 seconds. So you can go pretty much from pack to pack to pack, and get a free 10% damage boost there. I guess you can go Ritual, but you obviously have to keep your health up to actually trigger it. For bosses, yeah, go Dagger Talisman. That's your best in slot. And for Flask, you're going to want the Stance Break tier as well as the Charge Attack tier. But you can use the Viridian tier, which allows you to have infinite stamina. So you can pretty much chain back to back to back strong attacks without being out of stamina too early. The location is really long. I made a location guide in my vampire build, so if you want to know location for this, check out that video. But yeah, that's basically the build. This weapon is freaking insane. So I will provide a level 200 spread, as you see here. Basically gonna get more strength, and for arcane you really don't get much bleed after 50 arcane. From here, pretty much every point is just gonna give you one more blood loss buildup, which is not that significant, and that'll be your level 200 spec on Prophet or the other classes I mentioned. But yeah, I don't really use the spells, but you can if you want with the Dragon Communion Seal. Otherwise, Golden Vow for the damage and damage negation buff, Flame Grant Strength for 20% increased physical damage, and that's about it besides what I just said. Yeah, I would probably just put maybe the dragon spells here. And for bosses, here is the buff order. Golden Vow, then Flame Grant Me Strength, followed by two-handing your weapon, and then using your Ash of War Shriek. Although I would copy exactly what I do in these videos, because there was some clips where, you know, sometimes if I do something out of order, it kind of messes things up. So make sure to copy exactly the way I do it. Like against the Frenzy boss, when you fight him, you want to run straight at him as soon as you start the second phase. That way you can avoid his frenzy thing at the very beginning. And same thing with Mesmer, you want to be able to dodge all his stuff at the very start, and you should get off your attacks for the most part. Sometimes that big AoE is bullcrap, but it is what it is. The game's cheap. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy the build. If you did, give it a like. It is very strong. So if you're looking for a big bonk build, then I think this is probably the best in the game so far. At least that you can find early on. I know there's some special boss weapons later on, but those are like dozens of hours into the DLC. So for people that are looking for something early, this is it. So hope you guys enjoy. Leave a like on the video. Comment down below what you guys want to see next. I'm going to make builds like this where I don't edit as much just to get them out faster. So hopefully you guys like this format. Kind of throw back to the old Dark Souls 3 days where we just kind of stand in front of a camera and, you know, give you guys the lowdown of the build, and then that's it. Let the footage talk. So I'll be quiet. You guys enjoy the footage and subscribe for more Elden Ring epicness.
Depths of